Hey, everybody. Okay, so just think of it this way. So we're in this wild world right now where I think so many of us are so overwhelmed, so polarized, so manipulated in our consciousness that we're not moving from our encoded path, from our encoded knowing. Um, I'm working on this like encodings related model, which is sort of congruent with my soul shaping work, sacred purpose, soul scriptures, what James Hillman called the innate image. The idea that you are born and that you carry within you um, very specific and sometimes more generally directional um, encoded pathways of possibility that reflect your unique soul's journey, not the generic soul's journey, not the absolute soul, the individuated, personal, unique, polyphrenic soul and the mission that accompanies it. It doesn't have to be noisy. It can be very subtle and very humble. And now we're in this world where AI has already taken over. Algorithms are manipulating human consciousness. People are acting out from polarity. They're off code. We could say they're off code. I mean, not all of them. It's for them to decide, but I think it's safe to say some of them are off code. I think we're manipulated primarily by making us off code, right? Because if we're on code, we're clear as to who we are. We're sovereign. We notice when we're being fucked with. And we just really want to honor our mission in all the different forms that comes in internally, right? So I want to read this quote to you from Humanifestations that really relates to this question and just talk a bit about this. Okay, here it is. Okay, it's from page 94. Okay. And then I just want to ask some questions. Just leave you with some questions. Okay. I have known many famous people. Few of them understood the secret of life, according to me. Most were so trapped inside of their childhood need for attention that they never graduated to the next stage. That stage is very profound and very private. It's the stage where the little voice that knows, that's inside of you, calls to you, lovingly reminding you of your one true path. Not the path that demands the most attention, but the path that threads right through the heart of your soul. There's a path in there with your name on it, and it longs to be lived. And when you live it, you no longer need to chase the world. You no longer crave applause because home is where the soul is. One soul clapping is more than enough. Close quote. So let me just go through this. I'm talking about famous people only because of the sort of celebrity culture world, right, that we live in. And I've known many famous people. I know some famous people now, and some of them just became famous because they really are on code. They really are aligned with their truest path. They have some gift that's profound, and when they can bring it into being, they feel that deep gratification, what I call truth chills and soul shaping, rather than the truth aches we experience when we're off code or off path, right? We're not doing what we're here to do. We're not honoring what we're here to become. Um, but I've also known a number of them who are, in my view, off path. They now, we do need validation. They may be out there questing for validation because that's part of their developmental process. They have a mission in the heart of it. And so, it's complicated and it really is, I know, for them to decide. But there is a profound difference between somebody who reaches that place through a very uniquely constituted, idiosyncratic kind of soul actualization stream. You can just feel that. They usually don't, they may be public figures because that's part of their soul's code, but you don't get a feeling that they really need that or even particularly like that. And others are there because they really need the adulation. And we all needed adulation at certain stages in our lives. I mean, this is part of the developmental process. It's in a way part of what Ram Dass meant, I think, when he said, you have to become something before you become nothing. And when you become nothing, you become everything. There's a bit of a bypassy quality to that quote. But if I look at it this way, it sort of means you reach a place where you're a little bit satisfied within the self. You've reached that place of sort of actualization of the self. And now you're kind of done with that stuff, and you're really more focused on being of service and offerings and all those things. Giving over to the world. It's not so much about you anymore. In any event, let me continue. So that stage is very private and very profound. This is the secret of life stage. It's the stage where the little voice that knows. So that's inner daemon, they call it in the literature. I'm going to write a book about this now, but it's like, and I did write it. If you're interested in this stuff, soul shaping covers a lot of the ground, but more subjectively than I'll cover it in the next book. It's the idea that you sort of come into this incarnation with what we could call it intuition, a little voice inside of you that's kind of like reminding you of what your encoded path is, what your encodings are, right? Lovingly reminding you of your one true path. Now, it doesn't mean it's a linear path. It doesn't have to be that. It can be very specific, or it can be more generally directional, archetypal. You're here to move from malevolence to benevolence. You're here to live a more surrendered way of being, something, whatever that is for you. Not the path that demands the most attention, but the path that threads right through the heart of your soul. There's a path in there with your name on it, and it longs to be lived. Think about this, like in this crazy mixed upness of what the fuck are we doing here, and what is this, and why is it so crazy? Just to imagine that those little synchronistic moments you had in your life, all those so-called deja vus, were pointing you in the direction of something that already lives inside of you, and not in the sort of, it's all inside, it's not outside, like all that generic talk, but really more specifically, there is a profound, remarkable, luminous, true path that is you. Callings, gifts, offerings, certain archetypal work you're here to do. A lot of that emotional healing work that you're doing around trauma, some of it is just because you got to clear the debris so you can get clear on who you are and regulate your nervous system so you can have the energy to withstand it and to become it and to embody it. But some part of that is probably fundamental to your coding. It's the stuff you're here to work through. It's the certain people you manifest that you just sensed on some level were there because they had something to do with this encoded soul's journey, right? Like this is interesting stuff. So that the parts work, like IFS and all the other parts work, and it takes it to a whole new level when you start naming the parts, not only that sort of protect the soul or that are fighting for the soul, that's interesting, but also that really are intrinsic to the soul. And Richard's work, that may be the exiles, in many ways they had to be exiled. I don't know yet the interface between these two things. There may not be one, but I think it is interesting to think about naming all these parts of yourself and to ask yourself which parts are aligned with your distinct soul's journey, as opposed to parts that are there for some other reason. You can figure out those reasons. And then I said, and when you live it, you no longer need to chase the world. You no longer crave applause, because your home, is where your soul is. One soul clapping is more than enough. I like that line. If I do say so. If my soul does say so itself, I like that line. Close quote. So I ask you these questions. Do you believe in an encoded path? Do you believe that you came into this incarnation with very specific, sometimes directional, callings, gifts, and offerings, archetypes, healings, issues, and patterns to work through that are specific to your soul? Sometimes tragedy happens. Not everything happens for a good reason. Everything happens for a reason, but it's not always a good one. But sometimes there are things that are aligned, and it's for you to decide if they're aligned with your encoded path. But as a perfect reaction to the artificiality of AI, which is terrifying since we haven't figured out AI as an authentic intelligence yet, we've got this thing coming in. Maybe the thing that'll bring us back to our humanness and that'll shield us and protect us and remind us who we are and why we're here in the heart of this insanity of artifice is getting in touch with, excavating, actualizing, soul actualizing your soul's path, your encoded path. And there's another piece I want to read just because I'm getting excited about this tonight. It's a piece that Susan Frybort, from Open Passages, which is just fucking remarkable book. And I don't say that because I'm married to her. I'm telling you, it's a fucking remarkable book. It's called Deja Vu, right? Because I had all these deja vus, and I felt like, God, how did I know I was going to work with that guy? You know, you have those things. It's like, I know you got to be sure it's not the darkness leading you in the wrong direction. And we learn. But let me read it. Deja vu. I know you heard it. You heard it in the gentle sounds, echoing a memory you thought you lived once before. I know you felt it. You felt it in the rustle of what just happened, like a telling whisper encoded inside a familiar kiss. I know you've seen it. You've already seen the delicate shadows of what is to come in each stored deja vu, calling to you beyond the present hour. The milky stars that aligned to announce your birth will stay on to tell you. This is what they're going to tell you. Pay attention and look closely at the significance. Keep going this way, for there is so much more to come of this. Again, pay attention and look closely at the significance. Keep going this way, for there is so much more to come of this. And what I would argue is that there's so much more to come of this comes from your aligning with your encoded path, and your encoded pathway is a possibility in this lifetime that will make you more human, be more connected to your humanness in its most beautiful and poignant and soulful forms. Anyway, more to come. Thanks for listening.